No baking's required for this cute cupcake, but it seriously made me hungry. To start, you want to pick a color for your background. I'm using some purple and white today with my mop brush, and I'm doing circular brush strokes across the entire background. Notice how this gives it a fluffy and dreamy look, kind of like a cupcake, so I'm excited. Notice I'm doing a slightly darker purple around the outside edge for some framing, and I'm not going all the way down to the bottom of my canvas because we want to have room for our table. So I went about this far and dried it. Now, instead of a flat table, I decided to do a circular table. So just do one big curve at the bottom of your canvas and then fill in everything down to the bottom. And there's your background. Make sure it's dry and then pick a color for your liner then. I'm using yellow and white with a small round brush. The first thing I did was I found the center of my cake table, and right in the middle I did a wide smiley face. This is the bottom front of the cupcake. And then the sides of the cupcake are going to be a straight line, but notice they're tilted out to the right or the left. Now for the top of the cupcake liner, do the classic zigzag line to start on one side and do points going up and down like this. It's a zigzag pattern all the way across to the other side, just like this. Try to get them as evenly spaced as possible, but don't worry if they're varied a little bit. And then fill that entire shape in with the color you want for the cupcake liner. I'm mixing some white in with my yellow to help it cover, but either way, I'm going to do a second coat. Love how that stands out in front of that purple. Okay, the next big decision is you have to decide what flavor cupcake you want. I went with chocolate. 1, I love chocolate, but 2, it's a good dark contrasting color. That's up to you. Now, not much cupcake is going to be showing because most of it's going to be icing, but we are going to do a long wavy line about an inch, inch and a half above your zigzag. Make sure you have the cupcake curve a little around the outside edges where it baked over top, and then carefully fill anything underneath that line in between the zigzag in with your cupcake color. Look at that. Oh, now I'm really getting hungry. Make sure to dry that step and then grab some white paint for your icing. I'm going to use a size 6 round brush for this. And to get the shape, let's start with just doing one big wavy line slightly overlapping on top of your cupcake. Make sure either side curves up. And starting with the left-hand side, do one big curve around and a wavy line going almost all the way up to the top of your canvas. We're going to do kind of just a big dollop of icing. So fill in that curve. At the very top, it's going to have a point that's so heavy it's falling down to the right. So I made that curve go around and down. On the right-hand side, it's also going to curve around with a wavy line going up. But before it meets that top line, it's going to curve around to a point so that it looks like the icing is falling over on itself. I'm not sure what style icing this would be called, but I think it's cute. Also kind of reminds me of the top of an ice cream cone, so there you go. Let's fill it in. Now this is just the first coat, but we are going to tint it with a color. I decided to use orange mixed with a lot of white. We're also going to use some pink then, but start with one color and do one big wavy line like this, starting at the top of your icing, going down towards the bottom. These curves are super important because it makes the icing look a little bit more stylized, like it was piped on with a piping tool. When you have the curved shapes, then go back in with even more white while the orange is still on your brush and blend in those edges. I wonder what flavor icing this is. Maybe orange, I don't know, what goes with chocolate? How about orange and strawberry? Let's add some pink to this mix now. The pink is a little darker than the orange, even mixed with white, so it's going to act like our shadow layer. And what I'm doing is I'm piecing it in around the curves of the main orange. Basically, I don't want any white showing. And then with more white on my brush, I'm blending in those edges around the main orange. Like that. You could keep it super bright like that, but I want to blend mine even more over the top to make it look nice and smooth. So I took white paint on my brush and before it dried, blended around all my edges and really highlighted around the curves. Something like that. It's up to you whatever style you want to go with. Don't forget to make it your own. So now that we have the basic cupcake, let's bring the cupcake liner into the third dimension. To do this, I'm taking a ruler and a pencil, and doing a line from the top and bottom of each point of the zigzag line all the way down to the bottom. The ones in the middle are pretty straight, and the ones on the outside edges go along with the same tilt as that right or left-hand side. Something like this. Now, to make it look three-dimensional, take a darker shade of the color you made your cupcake liner, and you're going to paint in every other section that we just made. So see, I have a light color. I'm going to skip and do a darker. Just this little detail alone is going to make it look three-dimensional because the right side is going to be shaded and the left side is going to look like it has a highlight. Isn't that cool? Now do a second coat if you need to, and don't worry if the pencil lines are showing through because we're actually going to cover them with another color. I decided to use a greenish blue on my detail brush, and I'm outlining the outside edges and along all the pencil lines. Look how that really stands out now. I'm also picturing a slightly crumpled tin, so notice my lines aren't all perfectly even. If you really want to make it look three-dimensional too, you can take a darker shade of teal and darken the bottom sections of each of those lines. And I'm even going to take some white on my round brush and brush on some white highlights on the top edges of my yellow sections. All this detail is super optional, but I think it really makes all the difference. I'm even going to make it really bright here up on the top points. There we go. And as a final step, we can't forget toppings for the icing. So decorate however you want. I'm going to add a cherry on top by taking some red, tinted with some purple so it matches my background tone. And let's do a heart, but instead of a point at the bottom, it's going to have a curved line like that. Fill that in and make sure it's dry. You can do a second coat if you need to. Let's add a little white highlight. There we go, that really stands out. And with some dark brown paint on my detail brush, I added a little stem. So it's a line going out. Notice I did a little triangle at the bottom curve there. And I think it's really cute just like this. You could leave it that way. But I do have all these fun colors on my plate still from the rest of the painting, so why don't we add some sprinkles or hundreds and thousands? I'm going to do this the same way we added the seeds to our watermelon a few weeks ago. Just take your detail brush, load it up with paint, and use the side of the bristles like a stamp, just pressing down and pulling up. Also notice I'm turning my brush handle all different directions so it looks like the sprinkles are going on a little bit more randomly, like you sprinkled it on. Could you do a pattern with your sprinkles? Sure, but I like to do them not perfectly even. I think that really tied in all the colors. So cute. I even added a slight black outline to my icing to help it stand out a little more from the background, but afterwards I don't think it was really necessary, so that's another optional detail you could do. And there's my finished cupcake. I think I know what I'm gonna have for dessert tonight. I don't know about you, but if you try this one, I'd love to see how it turns out and have fun. Happy painting, everybody.